Hello, everybody. Welcome to a very special bonus episode. And for today's bonus episode about preparing companies for growth, we have joining us from the US and California, Bao Tran. Hey, Bao, welcome to the show.
Hello. Glad to be here.
So, Bao is a tech entrepreneur with a focus on AI, blockchain, and other digital twin technologies. He is the founder and CEO of Power Patent Inc., where he innovates the patent process through automation, and he's also the co-founder of Aspire Health, which leverages tech in healthcare. Bao is also an angel investor at TVC and represents Silicon Valley at the Boston Global Forum. He holds a JD, MBA, and BSE from top institutions. So, Bao, that was a short intro. Let's explore a little bit your entrepreneur journey, which I think will be of immense value for our journey because you have been directly related to product development organizations and developed products yourself, started companies in the tech space. So tell us a little bit more about your journey into the world of technology and entrepreneurship. What was one or a few transformative moments for you in that journey?
Well, hi Vasco. I'd like to get started by thanking you for inviting me to be at this. It's a great honor. As far as my background, it's pretty eclectic. I started out as an electrical engineering student, and then I decided I wanted to add an MBA background in New York. So then I went to Columbia for that. I thought I was going to go into investment banking. But then, my mother had a stroke in Houston, and I decided to go back, and then I had some extra time. So I added a law degree. I thought I was going to be in corporate finance, but then the people look at my technical background, and they said, oh, nope, you got to be in patents. And so I started out working with patenting the compact, they called it the lunchbox. If you remember back then, they had these laptops the size of a lunchbox. So we patented that technology. We patented the early ProLiant server technologies for compact, which then became HP, of course. I like nature and hiking, so eventually I found my way to California, to Silicon Valley, with a big law firm called Fish & Richardson, and we worked on applied materials, Adobe software patenting, and with a few startups. It's a big company, so most startups they really can't afford big law firms. But there was one company called Align Technology. They make the Invisalign orthodontic product, where they scan your teeth and then they make these 3D printed retainers. They are CAD fabricated so that they apply pressure to your teeth over time, and they move your teeth without the need for a brace. And I thought that was a pretty neat product. So at the time, most of my friends joined .com companies in the year 2000, and they were all doing IPOs left and right, and they were all doing well at the time. So I thought, well, let me roll my dice and join the company, because the founder liked me, and he invited me to come on and architect the patent portfolio. So I took the plunge, not realizing that everybody else was going after the .com, and I'm the only one going after the medical device. But of course, very soon after that, about a year after that, the entire .com industry space collapsed. And pretty much Align Technology was the only company that was actually raising funding and keep on going, and eventually it went public. It was pretty rapid course. I think I joined them in December 1999, and by 2001 they went public. Amazing. So it was an amazing trip, and I was very privileged to be with those, the founder, and of course, although Invisalign is a medical device company, it has a lot of software technology in there. Imagine, you got to scan your teeth, you take that data, you have to convert that into a CAD model, right? So you got all these point clouds data, and then you got to convert that into 3D shape, and then they have to have software to then automate the movement of teeth stage by stage. So you can go to Align now, and you'll see how those computer-aided technology, were done 20 years ago, was actually. And then subsequent to that, then we have to solve the problem of how do you scan the teeth in a way that's inexpensive. So we pioneered the use of X-ray scanners into portable dental scanning of your teeth. And then, of course, we had to deal with once you have that, how do you manufacture the stages? So there was software involved in mapping the 3D model into a 3D printed.
As you were going through that journey, which I bet it must have been quite a roller coaster, especially when you saw companies around you kind of collapse and you were like, I'm sure, in doubt, but eventually everything ended up good for that company and eventually went public, as you said. As you were going through that journey, what are some of the things when you look back you think, okay, people getting into this tech space, and especially people that want to maybe start products or develop new ideas, what were the key lessons you took from that time that you think people wanting to enter in the tech space and growing valuable companies could apply these days?
Well, I think, from a business side of it, you need to have a product that has traction, and that's what investors look for. I was lucky to join a company that was a fast-growing company. The other, so from a business side, that's important. But I think I like to add some value on top of that by putting in what I've seen. So second, you need is very good people that can develop software fast and quick. So quick iterations, quick fail. You'll see a lot of concepts that they tried it and they say, this is not going to work. Let's go this way. And so quick iterations. And then last but not least, you need to think about how do you maintain your exclusivity, because if you've done all the hard work in doing all these iterations and the pivots, and you finally found a solution that the market likes, it'll be terrible if somebody else comes in and just simply swipe the ideas from you. And that's one thing that criticism that I have of Kickstarter. If you go into Kickstarter and you just spill your gut, show everything you have, and then let the world vote by buying your product. Imagine if you're a competitor, all you have to do is just look at it on Kickstarter to see which company succeeded in funding, and they already told you what they're going to do. So all you do is you look at the success, and then boom, you copy them and you move quicker from them. So that's called the second to market type of strategy, where you look for somebody who's successful and then you copy them very quickly. And then that way you've learned from all their experience and you've gained all that time, right? So what's the solution for this? The solution is you need to do IP protection before you list it on, you make your go-to-market plans, you publicize it, right? So before you go to, let's say, Kickstarter, you patent it. And so that way, you're protected, right? And
but when you think about the process of developing the technology now, not considering the Kickstarter point, which we will come back shortly, but when you're preparing the company, I mean, I'm just thinking like, okay, you said you need to have a product that has traction. So like it's important to even define what does that mean for my product, and how do we measure that, what are we looking for, how do we create that traction. And then you also mentioned, but you need also good people that are able to iterate quickly, because very likely, especially if you're in a new space, the first attempts will not necessarily create that traction. So what do you take from that experience when it comes to structuring the team and rapidly growing through the product, and of course also through other means, a company, to ensure that you don't get maybe too attached to the first initial ideas? That can happen as well, right? Like that you are able to iterate and fail fast, as you mentioned. What are some of those experiences that you can share with our audience?
Well, I think one of the beauty that Silicon Valley has is that it's really global. It's not so much California, or it's not US. We have people from all over the world here. We had Palestinians working well with the Israeli people here. It's amazing. You don't see any of that conflict in Silicon Valley. We're focused on solving a problem. So, and the beauty of it is that we attract the best of the best. So that means there's an abundance of talent that you can tap into. So we're lucky there. But I think since for 20 years now, you see development centers are popping out all over the world. So they've replicated the the success that Silicon Valley had. But I think, because the world is a global stage, what I would recommend is that you have a core team that is close to you so that you can quickly communicate. But you also recruit people from other countries because they add diversity. They add viewpoints that, let's say, in Helsinki, you may not have the customer experience of somebody in China or somebody in maybe Kenya. So I think you need to have a core team that's really top notch, and then that recruits some additional top notch people from different parts of the world because they give you the perspective. And 20 years ago, that was difficult, but now with the advent of Zoom and internet, it's very, very easy now for you to communicate your point across. And so I think the key is you've got to find the top people in the space and recruit them and give them, be inclusive so that they feel that they're part of the team. They share in the vision, they share in the rewards, and then they add, and then make sure that you learn from their perspective because it adds diversity. I think diversity is something that maybe perhaps in the rush to market we miss that viewpoint.
Yeah. This is actually a great point because we are just at what might be, we don't know yet, but what sounds and feels like an inflection point with the appearance of large and commercially viable large language models. And we are talking about the need to have diversity in order to be able to understand how the product could work and also how to adapt the product to different geographies, right? Like this product category, the large language models, they are growing so fast and getting so fast adoption all over the world that even the topic of diversity has become a problem for that type of product.
Yes, we noticed Google's recent problem with trying to be overly diverse, right?
Yeah, there's all kinds of potential problems, especially because LLMs are now being treated as almost as if they were another human, right? So we are projecting onto the output of LLMs the same rules we project onto a news outlet, which is quite amazing that we are at that level of let's say parity in terms of ethical rules and so on. But it's also real, right? It's there. But I wanted to ask about something that you work as an angel investor and you work with many startups in your work. So of course you've talked a lot about how to build teams and also how to prepare companies for growth. But I wanted to focus still a little bit on that idea of how to build teams. Can you share what are some of the things you want to see in the companies that you work with and you support with your investments when it comes to the approach to recruiting talent for tech-focused companies?
Yeah, so I think you need to have a balance between new people with fresh idea and people with experience, right? So startups are typically younger generations who, let's say, have a new idea and they throw it out and they test it. And so the idea may have traction, it may be very popular, but as you scale, you will need to have some people with experience in making commercial grade software. So there's a fine line between a mix of that. And so I think what you should be looking for is the people with the idea, are they the best in their particular product space, right? And fortunately, in our world, we have so many, with the long tail approach to product development now, you don't need to be the best programmer. You just have to be the best person who come up with that vision, right? And then in turn, you go and recruit other people from a software developer or a few software developer as potentially your co-founders. And then have them help you build a product. Now, along the journey, you're going to find some people will work out great and some people will not. So you need to plan for that in advance. So what I recommend is you have some sort of a a vesting period where not all the stocks vest up front, but you space them out over a 4-year period, and you have a time to evaluate how well that person works into the company. And at some point, if there's a great fit, of course you'll know it, right? But if it's not a great fit, I'm a proponent of separation early. It's easier said than done. I myself, as we discussed earlier, I could not let go for over a year. But I think that if you do it earlier, it'll be less painful for everybody to transition and move on. That person that doesn't work out for your company may be perfect for another company. So so don't think of cutting loose as being a downside for everybody. You may be doing that person a favor, right? So you need to try to find the best that you can given your budget. And so typically, what is your budget for a startup? Well, for a startup, you don't have much, but you have the stock as a component. And so that's where the stock is the main reward, and the vesting period, it would be good. And then you also need to make sure that the IP is protected, because once you have a separation, people often turn non-cooperative. So what I would recommend is you get the person, come in, join the team, and work, and then develop the IP that, protect the IP that they're working on as early as possible, so you get that assignment done. And let's say maybe in 6 months or a year, you find out that for whatever reason, they are not working out. You have that IP already locked up, and you don't have to go in and into a protracted negotiation of whether or not they're going to assign it. Yes.
So when it comes to this idea, I mean, of course, I'm sure most people listening to this would be familiar with NDAs or non-disclosure agreements, but when you think about employees who will be quite very much deep into the product development, what does protect your IP mean in that context?
Well, so I'll give you a quick overview of the different aspects of IP that you can consider. So you have copyright that covers your website, your music, your videos whatsoever, right? And that's normally pretty easy to get. You have trademarks that protect your branding, how you name your product, and how you identify that. And that's also fairly straightforward. You have trade secrets. So for example, in AI, how you train your learning machine, that's not patentable, but you may have some special recipes on how you pre-process the data, how you sequence the data for training. And so those things should be kept as a trade secret. Trade secrets also cover your customer list and things like that. So that's a component. And that's, when you mention NDA, that is where the NDA ties into the trade secret. Now, one problem with a trade secret is that these days, employees are mobile, right? So you have an employee that might work for you for 2 or 3 years, and then they just jump off and work somewhere else. Now, if you rely purely on trade secret, and if that secret is in their head, they can't undo it. It's there in their head, right? And I think in the US, and I'm pretty sure in Europe, a person is entitled to use what's in their head. They can't, purposely copy your customer list, but if they know generally that, hey, this is a customer type, you can't stop them from using what's in their brain, right? So the way you protect your IP is in patenting. And so if you have a patent, regardless of whether or not somebody carries it in their head or not, they cannot practice that particular patented method, number one. Number two is a lot of founders make the mistake that, patents are expensive and I really want to take all my money and pour it into software engineering. Well, it is an item you got to pay for, but think of it as an asset, because I found out that a lot of founders have this mistaken belief that they're just paying $10,000 to file a patent application and they'll never see anything coming back out of it. That's not true. When you have a patent application, you can go and tell your investors that, hey, I have a patented concept, and that patent there is worth at least $150,000, $200,000. Because it's protecting the concept, right?
So that's actually a good point. So as also an investor yourself, what are some questions you ask the companies to assess if they have actually IP that may be worth patenting and therefore also create value, create an asset for the company, as you said?
Well, the first thing I do is I go in and I say, what is your product? And what is it that you don't want your competitors to be able to say about the features of that product, right? So we have a feature list. That's important, right? Once we have a targeted feature list, what we do is then we say, well, tell me, how does your software, or or in case of a mechanical system, how does a system perform and provide this feature? They will give me, oh yeah, we do it this way and this way and this way. And then I'll ask, okay, give me the diagrams for that, right? And so once you have the diagram and a high level description of how it works, that's the fundamental basis of a patent application. Now, then it comes down to a matter of cost. How do you, if you have Series A funding and you don't have time, sure, you pay a big law firm to do this. Now, if you don't have money and you're a scrappy seed stage founder, how do you do this without burning your bank? One way to consider is to use technology itself. So Power Patent, as you mentioned, is one company that I work that I'm a founder of. And what we do is we take that information, the drawings and the basic description of how it works. We use AI to then spin out a patent application that is, almost, we call it ready for filing, but we don't recommend that you file with that. We recommend that you take that and then you find a lawyer who can work, who would be willing to work with you, and he'll say, hey, look, I've already drafted most of the application, and even though I think it's 90% done, I'll say 60% done. Could you take this and add your value and review to it, and review the document and add your value to it and bill me half price? Instantly, you have saved money there.
So that is very interesting, especially the first step, because you were thinking, okay, so we need this kind of information, like you talked about diagrams, feature lists, and so on, that you can feed into Power Patent. But what I'm thinking is, okay, so let's say there's product owners listening to us right now, and they're thinking, so one way in which I can add value to my company is by finding, right, like either creating or finding things that are worth patenting. And that question has two sides, which is, of course, first, what do I have that I could patent? And also, what are things worth patenting in general in my product category or business vertical? So from those two questions perspective, like, how do you advise the startups that you work with to find those assets, those valuable items that you can then patent?
So there are two routes to do this. The first is, I think you need a foundation of protecting your products first, because most founders are not really interested in patenting for the sake of valuing the company based on the patent. They're interested in protecting their go-to-market strategy. So in that first approach, we use that strategy that we just mentioned, which is identify the product features that you think is unique, and those are the features that you tell your investors as this is how we're differentiated from the competition, right? So lay that foundation. That's step number one. Step number two is, to the extent you have the luxury of time, you look at your competitor and you think, now if I am successful and they want to ape me, how would they morph their products to offer some of my features? And so you might want to, kind of envision a future where you're so successful that other people may want to adapt their product into yours. So how would they design around your product to offer the same feature, right? So that's layer two, is to anticipate the competition, how they would avoid your own patent by designing around it, right? So instead of they design around your own patent, you would design around your own patent and patent that. That's number two. And then step number three is for companies with more resources, somebody dedicated to, let's say, an in-house attorney. They might sit down and they think, well, okay, we have these assets, in the portfolio. How could we license people not in our own industry, but in other industry, to use this technology in their own space, right? So i.e. you expand your original invention to future uses. So I'll name you, let's say, give you an example. Let's say you may have invented some sort of a solar charger, and that might have originally been used for, let's say, a car. But now that solar technology, because it's lightweight and it's high efficiency, it might be able to use it in, let's say, in a laptop, on back of a laptop, so that the laptop could be solar recharge, and you don't have to constantly plug it in. So you can you can take your technology, because you know it quite well, and see how it might fit in other industry, and then you would patent that, and then you would approach those companies to license them. So that's free revenue for you, right? Although it's not in your your strategic focus of what products you're going to be serving, you still can monetize the technology for use by non-competitor, which is perfect. You'll make more money that way. So
from those companies you've invested in, what are some examples that you've seen of, I would take first the identified product features that you think are unique and lay the foundation, that aspect. What are some of the most impressive outcomes of that you've seen? Yeah, this particular company was able to actually do a really good work of assessing their product and what they thought was unique, and they really laid a great foundation for growth as well, right?
Sure. So we have a company called Micronoc Inc. And what they do is they put in these battery banks into small and mid-sized businesses. And the objective of that was to average out the energy consumption when they power up during the start of the day, because out here in California, we basically have a particular pricing mechanism where they price based on expectation, based on your highest surge, because they figure that you're going to continue on using that surge, so they're going to reserve the energy for you for that surge, right? But as you know, a surge is just temporary, 5-10 minutes during startup, and if you're paying for that elevated cost all the time, that's a waste of money, right? So what this company does is they put in battery back up into a big, it's like a cabinet size battery, and it buffers the energy consumptions during the start of the day. And then during the rest of the day, it'll just sit there and lightly be charged, right? So we patented that particular structure of cost saving. But then you take that and you go to level 2, when you think, well, imagine if you have in a city 1,000 of these businesses that have these distributed battery banks. What can you do with it? Guess what are they doing? They basically talk to those businesses and they say, hey, we want the ability to reverse the power flow from powering your business back into the grid. And that is and that's how they arrive at the concept of what is called a virtual utility. Because now you got 1,000 battery bank that you can on demand. Let's say if you have some sort of a circuit brownout, on demand, those 1,000 batteries can now be charged back into the grid, right? Distributed battery.
Think about it, like these ideas these days are so easy, I mean, quote unquote easy to implement, because most of these battery modules are fully software operated.
Exactly. So, software ate the world, as they say it, right? So now, I think, to me, my guess is over 50% of the world's product is somehow touched by software. So the software space, the founders that you're serving, they're doing a very important thing. And, it was interesting. We were talking about what are the ancillary uses of power patent. And I talked to another investor, and they were thinking of doing a seed investment company where instead of just investing money, they're going to invest in they're going to provide a technological stack available for their founders to use. Mm-hmm. And part of that technological stack is to utilize the power patent as a front end. So when you join this, if you are a company that's invested in by this company, you will have access to cheap patenting capability. They're going to use AI to help you generate the pitch deck and things and business plans and things like that. So, and then they're going to have a network of people who produce for you. So for example, you might have consultants, software consultants, or you may have Alibaba doing the production for you and things like that. So yeah. I mean, I think software now is very easy.
We just touched a little bit of the surface, and I'm aware of that, and I think that would be quite a lot of space to dive deeper into this topic. For those that are interested and want to maybe read a little bit more, understand how they could bring these ideas to their business and their products and get the value out of it that you just described. What's one resource? Could be a book, a YouTube video, a blog post, or even a blog itself that you could recommend for our listeners to go in and learn a little bit more about the topic.
Yes, we have right now a small YouTube channel called Power Patent. But we're recording over 100 videos on different aspects of patenting and how does that relate to go-to-market strategies, and also views on the founder team and views on fundraising and things like that. So yes, you can visit Power Patent, the YouTube channel. And then we also have, because of my background as a patent lawyer, I also run a small patent law firm practice, and we also have a pretty rich set of video channel at Patent PC. So you can visit patentpc.com. So that's the law firm that we do patent services there. And so
we'll put the link to those on the show notes. And Bao, for those that want to get in touch and maybe ask a few follow-up questions after this episode, where can they find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
Yes, excellent. So they can reach out to me at btran@powerpatent.com. So BTRAN at powerpatent.com. Because I'm all about
put that on the show notes so that people can easily find and get in touch. Bao, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for your generosity with your time and your knowledge.
Well, thank you, Vasca, for inviting me to your show. And I would like to visit and see you in person in Europe.
Absolutely.
If you happen to be in Silicon Valley, if anybody happens to be in Silicon Valley, and let me know, I can show you.
Absolutely, and of course the invitation is definitely open. So if you visit Helsinki, do get in touch and let's go for a coffee. But I did want to give you a piece of feedback, if you don't mind.
Please do.
Yeah. So I think that you have a great idea about how to communicate the value of patents to those people who are already trying to protect IP. And I think your message is quite clear and pretty good in my perspective for that. But I find the gap in communicating the value of patents for those that may have heard about it, maybe even interested, but they never really thought about doing it to themselves. And I tried to help you with that by asking a few questions related to, if I'm a product owner, how could I benefit from creating a patent? And you did give some ideas related to licensing and thinking about how competitors might use the same technology, patenting that, and so on. So all of those were great ideas. So my piece of feedback is bring into this kind of conversations also what you've heard from people who told you at first, like, I'm not interested in patents. And when you bring those objections, you can say things like, okay, so people listening to this might think, oh, patents are not for me because, and the because is the objection you might have heard before, right? And then create your answer in a way that fits that kind of person, right? For example, my listenership, there's a lot of product owners, right? And many product owners will be directly responsible for the success of the product, not only through sales, but also through other things like, for example, not being sued or using the patent asset to grow the business.
That's one thing. That's interesting. Yeah, I forgot to mention.
If we can talk to them,
yes.
They'll be, let me check out the YouTube video.
Yes. I forgot to mention about one thing. patents can be used, if you're worried about being sued, patent is a defensive mechanism because imagine if some big company comes to you and say, hey, I'm suing you for a patent infringement. And you come back and you say, hey, I have these 5 patents and I think you infringed my five patent. It's an equal fight. But if you don't have anything to fight back, you're in trouble. I forgot to mention that.
So that aspect is also true. I think people who are not yet aware or maybe not yet into the value of a patent might not be worried too much about countersuits. But the example you gave of the batteries is such a great and powerful example because all batteries are run by software. It would be so easy to just copy what this company is doing because it's just software. You just write the software and you buy the battery modules from China.
Right? Exactly.
I'm actually working with a client that does this kind of work right now. But what I mean is, when you use that example, you can talk about, hey, but these guys, they're just developing software on top of a series of battery modules that they have installed in these small businesses. Anyone could come in and, recruit that business to use another.
Exactly. Software is such a fungible thing. Yeah, anybody can do software.
I think what you just said is actually quite a key to unlock the message. Software is fungible.
That's right. Once you tell somebody the idea, they can start thinking about it, how to implement that. And, I think you will find the expertise to reverse engineer your idea and build the same thing in their own ways, right? So, therefore, copyright doesn't protect that, trade secret doesn't protect that, it's the patent that will protect that.
And the example of the AI was also good, I found, because when you say you can't patent how you train an AI model, because basically it's just feeding data through a system.
Right.
But you can patent how you structure, how you organize, and how you filter training data. Like that is a very powerful insight for those that, maybe are not really aware of what is this whole thing about patents and why would they be valuable for my business.
Exactly. A lot of people in the AI space, they use open source models. So if you're an open source kind of person, you're gonna be slightly anti-patent. But I think the two worlds coexist.
This is a good point. What you just said. If you can sell it to an open source people or open source person, then you really have a winner, right? Because they are inherently opposed to the whole idea of closing things.
Right.
But if you can explain the value even for an open source company, right? Like there's a lot of companies that just they open source their product and then they sell services on top.
Right.
And then comes IBM and does the same. Like I'm just.
Right. No, I think it's a complicated topic, but the short of it is I think you can be both. You can open source things that everybody use, but then in your own business, protect how you have used that in your own business. So they're not necessarily...
You can use that to get the big players to fund the open source project.
Exactly.
Itself, right?
So they're not, to me, they're not opposites, polar opposites, but there is some room there where they coexist together, and I think if you use it right. Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you a question related to, I'm organizing the Product Owner Summit, as you can see in my background here. And so all of it will be about product ownership. So like, how do you develop products, how do you grow products related to that. And because of what you just introduced in this podcast episode, I was thinking, would you be willing to do a session, this time on video, where we would be talking about what are considerations for product owners, especially in smaller companies that are developing new technology, regarding how to prepare for the future? And in this case, we would be talking about, maybe, how do you think about product development if what you're doing is pitching it to an investor, right? Because that's a totally different thing. Selling a product to a customer is a different challenge to selling a product to an investor.
Oh, absolutely. That'd be fantastic. That'd be fantastic. I'd be very happy to do that. Just let me know the time slot, and I'll make sure I'll be there. Because I guess I work hard, but I also play hard. I go hiking out in places, and so
Okay, so but this is online, so don't worry about it. This is online, so no need to travel. But we would need to schedule a time.
yeah, just schedule me the time. But I go out and so that's the part of the thing that I like is doing what I do is intellectually so stimulating that it drains you. So I need to get out and go hiking.
Yeah, I can totally imagine that. Okay, before you go, let me tell you when the episode goes live. Let me look at the production calendar just a second.
And make sure you send me that information because I have a guy that promotes the blogs and the things like that, and we can promote your
We'll definitely
podcast.
do that. Right. So this podcast will go live on the last week of June, I believe. That
Excellent.
will be 29th of June.
Excellent.
So this podcast episode. But if we do the session for the Product Owner Summit, then it will be live in April.
Oh, perfect. Yes.
So
Wait. In
I'll get
April.
back to you with the details in any case.
What time? What day in April?
So we're going to record, and then the summit itself goes live on YouTube 23rd to 25th of April.
Oh, thank goodness we're recording that in advance because that week I'm in Hawaii. But yeah.
Yeah, we would not want to interrupt that. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we'll record and.
Oh, that's no problem. I can do any of that. Yeah, that's easy. So great. Yeah, I'm excited. All right.
It's a pleasure to meet you, and I'll get back to you shortly. We'll also email you when the podcast goes live, but if you want to write it down, that's June 29th.
June 29th. Great. Awesome. So we'll look for that, and we'll promote it once we get the links, and we'll put it on our site and go for that. So thank you so much, Vasco. It's a pleasure talking to you. Really have fun. So that's...
Likewise.
All right.
All right, pal. Have a good time.
You too. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining our intellectual property education series. We hope that this journey has empowered you with the knowledge to navigate the world of patents, trademarks, trade secrets, and copyrights. Stay inspired, protect your innovations, and continue to explore the boundless possibilities of your inventive mind through the intellectual property system. Subscribe for more insights, and until next time, innovate boldly.